What is going on, everybody? Welcome. Today, we are going to be talking all about some hair myths, some, hot takes, if you will, some things that you might be thinking about hair, and you might be curious whether or not it's actually true. We hope to be able to get Glam Girl Gabi, one of my best friends and an amazing creator, on to join us today. Just kind of a heads up, we're having some troubles in the technical department, which is always fun. So we're working on that right now. We're going to try to work her on board, and I hope we can get her on board. But while we work on that background, I figured, why don't we hop through some of these thoughts? So what we did is we put some posts on Facebook and on YouTube and on Instagram and just kind of asked you, what are your hot takes on hair? What are the myths that you think? And then our goal is to kind of go over them today and see if they are actually hot takes or myths. So why don't we, while we're waiting to see if we can get to Glam Girl Gabi up on the call today, why don't we hop into this and start throwing up a couple ideas or a couple of the comments that you have. So we're going to go through and let's take a look at some of the things. So L Parker 28 said, your take on the curly girl method. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is a hot take, because if you are unaware of the curly girl method, it is absolutely a thing. I haven't made a lot of content on my channel when it comes to curly hair, and partly is because it's tough to get it to perform well because it's such a specific audience. I won't get into the whole way the YouTube algorithm works, but the other part of it is it's a very serious topic. And so the curly girl method, if you're unfamiliar with it, is basically a method that really kind of relies on a lot of dry cutting. And I guess that's where I'll get into my response on it. I feel like I'm going to set myself up. This is just right out of the gate, going to go hard. Here we go. Personally, do I think that it can work for some people? Yes. Do I think that technically you could be trained on it and do a good job? Also, yes. Do I think that it is the most effective technique to use on curly hair? And do I kind of get on the bandwagon hype on it? Not at all. Now, let me explain why. I do have a reason. It's because when you're dry cutting curly hair, and this goes beyond just the curly method, of the curly girl method, this goes into the actual just idea of dry cutting curly hair. If you've got curly hair, then you know that when you dry it one day and you dry it the next day, you're going to get two different styles. And that's pretty normal for any texture, but realistically with curly hair, you're going to get different curl patterns in different areas. So what happens when you go in and I sit you down in my chair and I cut your hair dry just as you walk through the door, you styled it, I cut it, and I kind of cut it according to the shape and the curl pattern currently and all of that stuff. And then you go home and you get it wet and you restyle it. Could it work out? Yeah, but will it absolutely be repeatable? No. So every time, since it's going to change a little bit, it's hard for me to kind of get behind it. I personally like a little bit more consistency with things. So as much as some people don't like this idea, I actually prefer to, in a perfect world, I cut curly hair wet so that I can get a little bit more control, because in its wet state, once you scrunch in a little bit of that curl, you're going to see a little bit more of the wave pattern, a little bit more realistically to how it's going to look on a day-to-day basis. And there's no other manipulation, i.e. products or drying technique that's going into that process. So once wet, I get a little bit of an idea for it. And then if it's a technical cut, like a bob, I literally say, can I dry your hair straight? And then let me polish it off, because I know that if I can get it straight and blend in all the ends and make sure that everything looks really, really, really clean and precision straight, it's going to look good curly. However, what I don't know is that if I cut it curly and it looks great, when you dry it straight, is everything going to be as polished or as technical? So that was a very long answer to get to the point of the curly girl method. I think it can work, but I personally don't subscribe to it. And I don't think it's the end all technique for curly hair. But if you've been getting it and you love it, stick with it. So yeah, there's that. Moving on. Wow, gosh, I do feel like that started out strong. Okay, Anugita, I hope that I said that right. I'm sorry. Why do hairdressers say wet cutting? This is another kind of curly girl thing. Wet cutting is better than dry cutting. Isn't wet hair more prone to breakage? So this is a kind of a follow-up, I guess, to that realistically. Wet hair, when you're combing it through wet hair is in its most fragile state. So that is true. But with that said, wet cutting is just more, and many times a little bit more precise. Now, I actually, for most hair textures, I like both, meaning that I like to wet cut it to kind of what we call roughen the cut. So I like to comb through it and be able to get really good, clean sections, cut it, and then dry it. And then after I dry it, I go through and kind of polish it off and make sure that everything is just right. That's my preferred method. I don't necessarily think that wet cutting or dry cutting on straight hair, this is separate from curly hair. Wet cutting or dry hair cutting on straight hair is necessarily better or worse. I think you can do well if you're drying it straight with both of them. I just think wet hair, I was always taught in hair school, your cut is only as clean as your sections. So if you can get really good, clean sections, then you can get a really good, clean cut. And one of the easiest ways to get a clean section is if you've got wet hair, you just get a really clean, perfect part. So yeah, that's why I kind of go do it. But I don't think that that dry cutting is necessarily a bad thing either. I just think it can be somewhat problematic when we talk about curly hair, but we've already gone there. All right, let's move along on to the next one and kind of see what else we're saying. Mary El Moi, I hope. Does any product besides Rogaine actually work? So Rogaine, she's speaking of trying to regrow hair. So this is a really, really good question because for a long time, there are some other products like Propecia, stuff like that. There are some other products that I thought worked. Then I spoke to somebody, I spoke to a doctor who specializes in a lot of stuff along these lines, hair loss, like menopause, stuff like that. And she'd mentioned that Rogaine was kind of, in her research, has been kind of the gold standard of hair growth. Then I did a little bit more research, and I do believe that Rogaine absolutely works. She's not wrong by any stretch. But I did a little more research and saw a lot of people saying that Rogaine and I never pronounce this correctly. It's ridiculous. Finasteride, I think. The combination actually work really well together. So actually, that's what I just started doing. I am getting a little less hair up in that corner right there and in the back. So I've been on that train myself of trying to regrow. And I've learned that Rogaine did work, but I wasn't seeing amazingly dramatic results by any stretch. So I'm hoping, and I've only been taking the combination of the two along as well as this is actually from a company called Hims. They also have Hers. I just started using this like a few days ago. So I don't know, but I've heard a lot of other good stuff about finasteride. As far as the other like natural stuff, I just don't honestly know to say absolutely. I think maybe for some people they work, but I just can't say absolutely unequivocally yes or no. So I did just get a note that our good friend Gabi has actually been able to hop on. So let's bring her into this chat and let me introduce her a little bit to you in case for some reason you don't know. Gabi, you got everything working. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Can you hear me? What a disaster.
I can only imagine the stress that ensued about 5 minutes ago. And yes, I can absolutely hear you.
Good. It's good to see you. Hey, everyone. It's good to see everyone.
It is good to see you too. I'm so glad you joined us and thank you so much. If you by chance have not or somehow are not familiar with Gabi, Gabi is an incredible artist, both with makeup as well as hair. She's got an amazing channel where she shares all of the tips. And let me just give you some insight on how good she is. She used to be a way smaller channel than me. And then all of a sudden, she has just completely blown me out of the water. She's growing so fast because this is her channel right here. Definitely go check her out if for somehow you don't know her. But she is absolutely killing it. And I can tell you that the only reason that she is doing so well and growing so quickly is because the information that she's sharing, the value she's giving is exceptional, but also because she's a good human that just shares stuff from a very real place. So there's no like hidden mirrors and like, hide behind with Gabi. She's just a good person. And I've known her personally for a while now as well. So I can say this outside of just our social media. So make sure you go check her out. Make sure you subscribe to her. And then I honestly think that the last few videos, if you've been watching my channel, there wouldn't even have been videos without her because she's been doing so much help for me. We've got the ticker tape down below that's giving you a little bit of ideas on her Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of that stuff. So go check her out on all the platforms. Thank you again, Gabi. And
Sorry, Justin. Thanks for such a warm intro. Canadian Chick just said there's an overlay on your camera. I see that. Give me a second. We've had some tech issues.
I love this. So this is my favorite thing about lives. You guys, lives, this is not a curated video where we just go in and, hey, I'm so scared. Callison, I'm so scared I'm going to pronounce things wrong. We all, like the videos are published, right? And are put together, right? They're like edited. These are just like, hey, you're just going to have a conversation with us. There's nothing more to it, right? It's just you and me and Gabi having a conversation. So
that's right. You guys see all of our imperfections on live streams. I was on another creator live stream last week, and something has happened with my system here, and it's like having a really hard time connecting. So I was on my phone, and then my husband was calling me to see if he could bring our kids back home because they have to leave during live streams because their little voices get picked up in the audio. But every time he'd call me, I got kicked off her live stream. So I was just like,
driving you nuts. Okay, so let me give you a little backstory on why we decided to do this live and what our real purpose is, because I think it might be interesting to a lot of you. We decided to do this live because Gabi and I both have professional hair cosmetology backgrounds, right? So we do this as a profession, and we have done this as a profession. Now, we specifically asked for hot takes or myths about hair because I told Gabi, and she agreed, I promise you there are some things that we likely disagree on. And I think the overwhelming purpose of this video is to let you as an audience recognize that there are going to be some things from two professionals that we disagree on, and one is not right, nor is one wrong. They're just differences of opinions. There are definitely some things when it comes to the technicalities of hair that are just fact, right? It's the way hair works. It's not an opinion that just is what it is, but also that when we have differences in opinions, I'm sure like there's gonna be some things where I'm like, Gabi, you're insane. That's totally, I don't agree with that at all. But also great, like have that opinion, and there's some things that I've learned from her that I disagreed with and then thought, well, you know what? Actually, you're not wrong. I mean, like, I guess it is a different way of looking at it. And that's what I like about these kinds of conversations is let's look at things a different way, So that's likely what you're set up for. Second, before we get any further into this, sorry, what is going on with your 6 feet of hair? Because I'm pretty positive you've got a bob. Where did that come from? Can we do a quick one?
Yeah, I'm rocking this Tomb Raider braid right now. So I just bought it on Amazon. If you Google like braided extension, it's an elastic, and there's 3 hairs, like strands that come out. So it's like a thick strand here, a thick strand here, a thick strand here, but they're divided in 3. And then there's another strand. So what you do is you put the elastic on your ponytail, you wrap it around, and then you wrap the one around the elastic, and then you braid your hair into it. And I've been wearing it like this all the time. Whenever I'm like, my hair is dirty or I just don't have time, I put in my Tomb Raider braid and I feel fabulous.
It does have Tomb Raider vibes. That's hilarious. I love that. I love it. We'll go ahead. Anything we talk about today when it comes to products or stuff like that, we're going to try to go ahead and link that in the description. So by the time the video is done, we'll make sure that we get all those links so that you guys can find all of this stuff easy. If you do want to, maybe you're going for that Tomb Raider look, it is Halloween coming up.
I want to say too, and Justin was saying that sometimes as stylists, we have differences of opinions. And the thing with makeup and hair is that it's aesthetic and it's subjective, right? There's nothing objective about makeup and hair. And so even sometimes when I do my big transformations on the women that come into the studio, every once in a while I'll get a comment being like, because I always say, this is how she normally does her makeup. This is how she looks with no makeup on. And this is how she looks with my glam transformation. And every once in a while I'll get a comment that says, I actually like her better the way she did her own makeup. And I'm like, that's fair. And it's not like, well, you're wrong. That doesn't look better. It just looks different. And makeup and hair is all about feeling beautiful on the inside and having that be a self-expression point on the outside and what makes you comfortable and confident. So opinions in this realm can change a lot. And so never feel like because there's like a rule to whatever, but you like it that way, you shouldn't, like do what makes you feel good. Cause that's what it's all about. It's just self-expression.
I could not agree with that more. And that's been, oddly enough, that's been the basis of my entire channel. I feel like I don't do a great job of always explaining that because I feel like I explained it so many times in the video that it's like, so at some point people were like, just, like stop like explaining it. just go on, like don't try to, like butter us up or whatever. And I'm like, I do want you to understand that though. So I probably failed many times at getting that sentiment across. However, I couldn't agree with you more,
And me too. And those extreme videos, they tend to do well. So we title them like that. But then secretly on the inside, you're like, oh, because I do a lot of like blush mistakes that you're making. And it's like, they're not really mistakes. They're just, here's another way to do it,
Yeah. We could do an entire live just on that whole process, the behind the scenes of social media and YouTube, and why we title things and use thumbnails and like, yes. And then we're understanding like, we don't like it. It's a part of the process. And unfortunately, I wish that, we just don't do it. Well, then we would not have channels if we didn't do it. It is what it is. Like it's as much as we don't agree with it. It's one of the things we have to deal with. So yes. And my wife, Deanna, just trying to get her face in there. Hi, babe. She's literally right there. Like she's 4 feet from me, probably.
Deanna, peek your beautiful face in there. I want to see that gorgeous face. Yay!
There's nothing if not authenticity with this one. She does not show up with all of her makeup done.
Yeah.
Beautiful nonetheless. Always beautiful.
Thank you, honey.
You guys got to follow her on Instagram. I'm obsessed with her Instagram. It's so authentic and genuine. It's like the best.
It is.
Oh, I love you.
Lisa, what's going on, Lisa? She says, we love you.
All right. I'm watching in the other room. I love
you. Lisa's awesome, by the way. She's been like one of the longest time members of the community. She's awesome. So hi, Lisa. Thank you. Okay, so let's dive into why we're here. Let's throw up some hot takes. Let's see if we agree or disagree. And we've got our first one. So chopping toots. I love this. Hold on. Chops and Toots. I think I love this so much. Okay, that's such a great name. My hot take is that shampooing daily isn't necessarily bad, especially with the large variety of sulfate-free / natural shampoos that are out on the market. I have an opinion. Gabby, go ahead.
Should I go first, or do you want to go first?
I want you to go first before I break down mine. Yes.
Okay, so first of all, sulfates aren't bad. So okay, I know that there's a lot of stuff on like sulfate free this and sulfate free that. I think that whole sulfate free movement is like a marketing tactic. Sulfates are not bad. And secondly, I actually don't think that shampooing your hair daily is that bad either. Depending on your scalp, your hair type, and what your hair needs and how much conditioner you're putting back into it and the amount of heat styling. I think excessive amounts of heat styling is bad. But my sister, for example, has super curly hair. She washes it daily and lets it air dry, and she has the healthiest hair I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, I love it. I really thought we were actually going to disagree a little bit on this. So we do agree 1,000%, but I would have disagreed with you probably a few weeks ago, quite literally, I would have disagreed with you. As far as sulfates go, 100% agree with you. I've agreed with you on that for so long. There's sodium lauryl and sodium lauryl sulfate. They are different. And I think the key is that one of them is used in like industrial cleansers, like to strip things. And I think that's what people attached onto, and they just heard the word sulfate. And then there's this whole, like, I won't get into it, but the carcinogenic aspect of it. But aside by that, I haven't seen anything that leads me to believe that there's anything wrong with them. It's just like you said, it's a marketing ploy. With that said, as far as the process of shampooing your hair daily goes, I always thought, it's not necessary. So I always subscribe to the idea that it's not necessary to do every day, but we are taught in the US to do it every day, but it's okay if you don't. And then it grew over time to maybe it's not good for you because especially if you're using something that's too strong for your hair, it's stripping out too much of those natural oils, and we need those natural oils. Then I kid you not, probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, I watched a video from babe, what's the girl's name? Abby Young, who's a trichologist. And she was explaining how it's not so bad for you and why it's not so bad for you. And, like all these things. And it made me completely rethink everything that I had thought. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, it might not. I thought it was so bad for you. And I don't think that it is. And this is the whole process, right? We learn this, like, we're professionals, but we're taught things over decades. And then sometimes you have to be open enough to relearn something and maybe go against something that you've always been thinking, right? Or always been taught.
Yes.
It actually made me want to do a video. I think I'm going to come out here pretty soon where it's basically like what stylists have been lying to you about, myself included, and then actually go through all the things that she says that I always thought different and told all my clients different, and then realized maybe I am wrong on all of that.
I have multiple videos from like 3 to 4 years ago where I'm talking about shampooing tips and I'm always like, and always make sure it's sulfate free. And then at one point I'm like, why am I even saying that? Like, what is sulfate? What does that even mean? It's just, we are taught that as stylists and we go with it because everyone says that. And the next thing you know, you're like, wow, I'm just spreading misinformation without actually understanding the science behind it or anything really.
Exactly. So yeah, I think we essentially agree with you. That's the point. Moving along. Let's see what we got. All right. Kateboy-R6JT or RX6JT does not washing hair enough make it more prone to fall out? What do you think?
You go first this time.
Oh, you want me to go first? Does not washing it enough make it more prone to falling out? I don't think so. I don't think not washing your hair is going to be the reason that it falls out. I think there's a multitude of other reasons that cause hair loss and hair breakage. And I think combining, first of all, just hair loss into the simple form of hair loss as a whole versus there's reason that it falls from your scalp and then there's reasons that it breaks off from the mid-shafter ends. I think those are two very separate things and very separate causes. Yeah. Many times deal with those. So I don't think that they can be combined. And then when we talk about just washing hair, I don't think that, I disagree. I don't think that it has that much effect on whether or not your hair falls out. You lose 100 hairs a day on average. That's what they say. And I just think that you notice it when you're in the shower and you see it on the shower floor. And I think that's what maybe brings us to the forefront. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think what happens, like say you go 3 days without washing your hair, you're not really seeing all of the fallout coming because it's almost trapped in the hair. So then when you wash it that third day, you're like, oh my gosh, so much hair is coming out, but it would have been normal for those 3 days anyway. So I think if your hair is going to fall out from the root, like if you're having thinning, right? That's different than breakage. So if you're having scalp thinning, it could be a multitude of reasons. It could be alopecia caused by genetic predisposition, like male pattern or female pattern baldness. It could be telogen effluvian, which is alopecia caused by like a disease. So say you got COVID, you got a really high fever, and 3 months later, you're noticing all your hair falling out. That's called telogen effluvian. Hair fallout also happens with hormonal changes like menopause, pregnancy. So hair falling out from the scalp or thinning really would have nothing to do with something physical that you're doing to the outside of your hair. Now, hair breaking at the bottom or even in the mid shafts, that could have something to do with your styling, the way you're brushing, what you're using to wash. If it's not like a product that's appropriate for your individual hair type and the needs it has in terms of moisture level. So I can see not washing. It's not even a washing thing though. Even if you don't wash your hair, it's not like it would break. So no, the answer to that in a very long-winded way is no.
I'm with you so much though. But I do think, just to kind of sidestep on this one real quick, I think it's easy for people to want to believe that there's like one or two causes for hair fallout or breakage. And there's just not. There are so many. And that's one of the reasons that it's so hard to, like, as a stylist, when somebody comes in, they say, my hair's falling out, what's going on? Like, I remember that there was probably one of the questions I had the most questions for, because I'm like, there are so many factors that could cause hair falling out or breakage that it's like, where do we start with that? And then you just need to break it all down. But selling people an idea that it's kind of like one thing or even two things that cause it, or the larger causes. Yeah. I think that sells them into the idea that those things can be addressed. And it's usually through like, take biotin or something, right? Like some sort of thing. Here it goes. Now it's addressed. And it's like, but that's not necessarily the only thing that's causing it. So that's not necessarily going to help the entirety of the problem. And I think that's the unfortunate thing with it. Again, long answer. No, we disagree.
Hair loss is a tough thing, guys. And I know that so many people have questions about that. My whole entire channel was about hair loss for an entire year because I had really bad hair loss. I actually had a hair transplant. I did like the whole thing. And so I know a lot about hair loss because of that. And it's very, very complicated to the point where whenever I get any type of brand asking to do a deal with them that has like a hair regrowth, this or that, hair regrowth pills, or even like like a serum, I always decline it because I just am not about making false promises when that is such a complex topic. That's not like, oh, this is a really great retinol that will make your skin glow. Like hair loss is a complicated medical thing. And it's very difficult to find a product that's just like miraculously going to make it better, because it might for 10% of the people, but for 90% of the people, and depending on what the hair loss is coming from, it might not.
I could not say it better than that. Yeah, I completely agree. All right, what else we got? Let's see. Let's move forward on this. Hey, what's going on, Andra? She is amazing too, you guys. This is like another incredible part of the community here. You have been around for so long, and I know that my wife and her actually speak as well, I think, in Instagram messages, and we really appreciate you. We love you. Should menopausal hair be treated differently in terms of shampoo and conditioner? Do you want to take this one first, or do you want me to take this one first?
Okay, I'll give you my answer.
Okay.
So this is the thing. So you have to assess what's happening with your hair because of your menopause. Is it drying out?
Yep.
Is it thinning? And then you have to address the symptom. So it's not menopausal hair should be X. It's my menopause is causing my hair to do X. So I need to treat it with Y.
I literally we're going to disagree on one of these at some point. I could not have like answered that any better than that. That's exactly what I was thinking. It really is. It isn't menopause. It is exactly the specific symptom that menopause is causing. And then you just address it. And I think that's actually another thing too, honestly, that especially right now, like I know that there's a big push on the whole menopause, like kind of, I almost call it a movement, right? Or just the education around menopause. And then stuff like this, like it would be really easy for a shampoo company to come out and be like, menopause hair shampoo, and all of a sudden everyone would buy it. And it's like, but that also is kind of unfair to people, right? Because there's a lot of different symptoms of menopause. It's not just like everybody has this one symptom. I mean, they might have one collectively, but like, it's not just like, oh, you're menopause, you're only this way. Well, you're this way. And then there's like 20 other variants of it, right? Like Deanna says, so many changes during menopause. I feel it's a multi-phase approach from nutrition, sleep, stress, hormones, supplements, etc. Yeah. Exactly. There are so many different kind of variants to that, but approaching anything you're doing with hair. So the same thing goes with like bleach or color or anything like that. When you damage your hair from an exterior or an internal space, addressing the symptoms a lot of times is what you're trying to achieve versus like trying to just overwhelm the cause, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which isn't normal, right? If you think of most things, you're trying to address the cause. Like, why is this happening? Let me fix that cause. But then to fix that cause, you're fixing menopause. Like, okay, then address every aspect of menopause and maybe it'll affect your hair down the road. But
yeah, totally.
Okay. Next, what else we got? Let's see. Monica Payton 1405 says coconut oil is good for their hair. I don't think so. Is it bad for the hair? I honestly don't know if coconut oil like builds up. I don't know what your take is on this, Gabi, if you know for sure. But what I do know is there's a huge push for like everything natural oil based. Put this in your hair and it solves everything. And I don't agree with that overall sentiment. Like, look, I feel like it ends up just being products that are just being pushed for advertising bases, not necessarily because they function so much better than anything else. With that said, I could be very wrong when it comes to coconut oil, kind of specifically, or a lot of those oils, because I haven't honestly done a ton of research into how they work, and I definitely don't use them on mine. What is your take?
Yeah, I wish I knew more on like a scientific level how to answer this. I haven't done like a deep amount of research, but I can tell you from an anecdotal stance, which isn't always the best evidence, but every time I had clients, so coconut oil, that movement got huge a few years ago. And I had a lot of clients that would come in and they're like, I've been doing coconut oil masks once a week. And it was always terrible. Like their hair was heavy, really weighted down. I've watched videos on even like how to get coconut oil out of your hair after you do it. But then my thing is like, well, if you're doing a coconut oil mask to really deeply hydrate, but then you're stripping with like a clarifying shampoo to get the coconut oil out, then did you actually do any good with the coconut oil at all? Because then you're kind of going backwards and taking all the nutrition out. So I don't know, guys. I don't know, but I've never seen someone who used coconut oil regularly have nice hair. If I'm being honest, based on just clients only.
Yeah. 100%. And so there's been a handful of times, and this is interesting, and I'm not saying that this is necessarily coconut oil or any natural oil, but just to give you perspective on what we're talking about when it comes to oil as kind of a whole. There's been a handful of times where I've had clients come in that have spent quite a long time, like in prison, right? And while they were in there, they were using different, like very specific products because you only get what you get, I guess, right? Like, I don't know this. The one thing I do know is that every time they came in, their hair was very similar. It was always like a very similar situation on every single one, right? And it was always that it was super doused down with so much oil like buildup that you almost couldn't get it to feel dry. Like no matter how much you dried it, it's just like you could not get rid of it. And I don't know if it's an oil that they use or if it's something in the shampoo or if it's something in the conditioner or what's going on, what product is causing that buildup, but it is a buildup and it is extremely severe. And that's what my concern with like overusing stuff like this oils can be is, are they going to build up and are they going to create this like, yeah, maybe your hair looks shinier as it, but at the end of the day, all of the other problems that arise with that far outweigh the extra little bit of shine that you get that you could have got with a spray shine that didn't build up or that, that flashed off when you heated it or rinsed out because it was, water soluble. Who knows?
Something that worries me a little bit about coconut oil too, and this like is not at all, I don't have evidence of this. When you're cooking, right, and you use an oil, you like fry things. So if you have a really heavy oil layer that's not specifically made for hair, when you're using flat irons, don't you have more of a like, could you fry your hair fat? I don't know, but I always wonder about that too.
Yeah, I honestly just don't know. Daisy Sophia May says castor oil is good for the scalp and hair. I know there's been a lot of talk about that. You could be very right. I genuinely do not know. And that is actually a very interesting question for, I would love to get a trichologist on where I could actually break down these very specific questions. Because just kind of a heads up, you guys, like as far as cosmetology licenses go, most of these questions, like this is not stuff that we just learn in school. Like this is the kind of stuff that we have to like proactively teach ourselves and find the education on over time as stylists. And so like a lot of this stuff, especially as new trends come out like this, or new like information comes up, I think probably a trichologist is a better source of information with this very specific stuff. But yeah, you could be right. I'm not sure. Is my final answer on that one. Probably not what you want to hear. Gotta be honest.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
I wish I knew. I need to make a video on it. That's a very good question. We got to go dive deep. We
do. This is great for giving us ideas to kind of like dive deeper into.
Yeah.
So let's go on. We got Arigma 99 says, are Brazilian hair straightening, e.g. Brazilian cacao, treatments damaging or beneficial to hair? Do you want to go on this first, or do you want me to go on this first?
I used to do some Brazilian straightening when I had my studio. This is the thing. It's a chemical treatment that changes the hair structure chemically. So it looks really glossy and smooth and straight. Right. But then as your hair grows, you can see that this is like coiled if you have like textured hair, and then this will be smooth. I don't think it's beneficial, but I wouldn't say it's not overly damaging where you'll see the damage, but it is a chemical change, like a structural change. What would you say?
So I go back and forth on this in 100% honesty. So back in the day when Brazilian, like hair straightening, all that stuff is like old protein treatments, right? It was like hair keratin protein that we were infusing into hair. And we did that like, I don't know, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when it became really, really popular. Now for a long time, what we learned is like, first of all, what some people don't know, like in the US, you had to have, at first you were allowed to do them and nobody said anything. And then it became, oh, wait a minute. No, you have to have very specific and specialized ventilation systems to even touch these things because they amount of formaldehyde in them.
Yeah.
And so while it's not problematic for a client, it was very problematic for stylists who are doing them all day. You shouldn't be inhaling this stuff. So we started doing them. We found that, yes, they got good results. They ended up giving the hair. So if you had really coarse, frizzy, curly hair that you were constantly blow drying straight and you want it to be straight, they rendered your hair straight. But they also tended to render it a bit lifeless, flat, straight, not movement or any like kind of volume in the straight hair.
Yes.
And it wasn't something that you could style back into the hair. Like Gabi said, it just kind of changed the overall hair structure, which just, I mean, yes, for some people, maybe it was great. For some people, it didn't work out. We finally did find some natural versions of it that were formaldehyde free. They didn't work as well. They worked, but they just weren't as effective. The other side note to this is that the delivery system necessary to get the formaldehyde and the protein into the hair, you had to use flat irons that were set to about 450 degrees.
Yeah.
And there's quite a big difference between 390 or 400 to 410 degrees and 450. And I would typically say that, and you might disagree with this, but we'll find out. I would typically say that 410, that's considered like effective. And if you don't overuse it, yes, it's damaging, but it's not as damaging as some other problems. But 450 is exponentially more damaging and more dangerous to use. And so you would never use the 450 setting on your iron on somebody that didn't need this specific heat for this process. Yeah. That also tells me, okay, do they make the hair look maybe the way you want it to? Yes. Are they damaging? Yes. Are they potentially damaging for everybody involved? Also, yes. Yeah. I just feel like there's more downsides than upsides to them personally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to tell somebody, hey, if that's what you want to do, like do your thing, but I would definitely be aware of what you're doing because you don't go back from them either. So like once you put them in, some of them, especially the more natural ones, would kind of like, like over time, they would kind of like, just relax a bit and you would get more of your natural texture back. But some of them, like it was like a chemical straightener, like a legitimate old school chemical straightener. Your hair was straight from the root on. So if you were like, oh, I don't like this, you're not going to go in and get a perm afterwards to try to get your texture back. That's not going to happen,
Yeah, I got it done on myself. I have really textured hair. And the thing is, like, oftentimes women do it to minimize their getting ready time. So it's a lot faster to blow your hair out. It's a lot faster to straighten it if you wear your hair straight every day. But Justin hit the nail on the head. Like, I had zero volume. It actually drove me crazy. My hair was like a pancake for a year. And I'm like, I'm not about that life. Even if I want it to be smooth, I want it to be full. And you lose your fullness completely.
Totally.
It's good. I think it's very beneficial for women with a lot of very thick hair and they always want to wear it straight. But there's definitely a very specific client that benefits from it. And you have to recognize if you're using one that's strong, the grow out is going to suck because you're going to have straight ends and mid shafts and a really kinky root. And it's going to be a pain in your butt.
Yep, 1000%. I got to say a quick shout out to Deanna, who sent a super sticker for $1.99. I think she's just trying to give me a little shout out. Thanks for paying me, babe. I appreciate it. She's buying me half of a cup of coffee over there. Just go downstairs and make one. No, all right, I'm just kidding. Okay, so Adriana says, I know I shouldn't heat style my hair every day, but what's a healthy frequency? Is washing and styling less often, once a week, or less really healthier for my hair? I absolutely love this question. Do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
You go. You take this one.
I love this. I agree with you, and I totally disagree with it with the idea. Figure that one out. Okay, so where you're coming from is you recognize, like people say, hey, don't use. There's like a massive movement that if you put heat in your hair is immediately going to fall out. It's going to break off, and heat is the absolute worst possible thing you could ever do to style your hair, right? And the more often you use it, the worse you use it. I disagree with that whole idea because I think, again, it's kind of like the hair falling out. There are so many things, factors that go into what damages your hair. We are talking about, from a health perspective, the foods you eat can change your hair texture and make it, i.e., damaged or feel damaged. Stress levels, hormonal changes alone. So all of the way, if we take care of ourselves, like from a athletic perspective, like are we working out? All of those things are damaging to hair, but people don't want to talk about that as much because it's not like a simple, quick, like fancy fix I'll just stop using a flat iron. Then it comes in, well, now we're drying our hair. Well, we can't use heat because heat's the culprit. Well, yeah, it is. But also, what about the way you use heat? Mm-hmm. So if you're using heat every single day, but you're using it efficiently and effectively, I can't tell you how many videos I've done on how to effectively use a flat iron or a round brush. And I think when you do it in that format, is there damage? Yes. But one, is that damage greater or more aggressive than damage from just maybe like using it, every few days incorrectly? I don't know that it is. Is it, on the other hand, maybe better to just do it correctly and love your hair every single day than to do it incorrectly, damage it every bit as much every third day, and not like your hair on the other days? I'm of the school of thought, use it heat correctly. It's not the only thing that damages your hair. And if you stop using it and you find that it is, because you find that it is damaging your hair, is it the way that you're using the heat, or is it the frequency of the amount of times you're using it? And if it is the frequency, you're doing everything right, and it's frequency, and you just feel like this is not right, well, then dial it back. But it's not the only reason that it happens. And I just feel like, do it, use it correctly. Don't be scared of it. Just understand what you're doing and how it's affecting your hair, and make sure that you're getting the benefit for the payoff for the potential problem. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Did I feel like I talked myself in a little bit of a circle there?
No, it totally makes sense. And I completely agree. And another thing that you got to think about too is that everyone, for whatever reason, every client I've ever had, they put their flat iron on the highest temperature. It's like automatic. Like if it goes to 450, it's on 450. If it goes to 400, it's on 400. But not every hair needs the amount of heat that other people's hair need, right? Everyone's hair has different needs. And a lot of it is based on how thick or thin your hair is in terms of like the diameter of the hair strands. So I have fine hair. It's not thick. So if I flat iron it on 300, it gets bone straight. Like it's so easy to flat iron, even though I have curly hair. But my sister who has really thick hair, she needs like 400 or it won't get straight. So what I challenge you guys to do is, if you are a daily straightener or every other day, I think it's okay. Just what you have to think about is like, do a strand, do a pass on 200, 250, 300, and find your individual heat need, and then stay there. There's no reason why someone with fine hair needs to go to 400, because then you're doing unnecessary damage. Your hair can't handle that. It's just like when we're ironing clothes, there's different settings for cotton, for silk, for satin. So you got to put it on the right setting, because if you put a cotton setting and you iron a silk blouse, you'll put a hole through the silk, right? Your hair is like that. Different people have like stronger hair than other people.
I mean, that's a really, really good test. That's a great way of like figuring it out. And I've said many times, like what people I find will do a lot of times is they'll lower the temperature, right? And then they go over it more times because they don't get the result they're looking for. And there's a very key difference between what you said and what you're telling people to do and what happens in those scenarios. And that is that you're saying, hey, look, what we need to do is we need to put that iron in, and we need to do one pass. We need to use it efficiently the first time. Yeah. Go one pass at the appropriate speed all the way through the ends, same rate all the way down. So we're using it efficiently, and then see, did that temperature yield the result that I want to get? No. Go up in the temperature. Yes. Go down in the temperature. But the difference is not just going, well, I'm going to turn it down to 300 and do the same pass 15 times to get the result. I can't personally say that is less damaging than turning it up to 350 and doing it one pass and getting the result that we're looking for.
Yes.
I love that you said that, because I actually have never thought to tell somebody to do that. Yeah. And it's such a solid, like, duh, of course. So,
yeah, you got to find your heat. I just saw a comment come in that I found really interesting. Is it okay if I read it? It's from Cinderfire. And she says, yeah, I want to air dry. Top layer of my hair has always been frizzy and dry. The rest of my hair is perfect. Nothing I use gets rid of the top layer frizz and poof. Pureology leave-in, oil, mousse, gel, none work. So I have a tip for you, and let's see if Justin agrees or disagrees. So I am not a fan of air drying at all. If you want your hair to be smooth and beautiful and last for multiple days, you absolutely have to blow it out. with tension, that's going to lay all of those cuticle layers, which is the outermost layer of the hair shaft. It's going to flatten them out and put them really nice and tight and down, which is going to make the light reflect off of it. It's going to make your hair look super shiny. And also when you're blowing it out, because you're controlling all the frizz, especially if you use like an anti-humidity or a frizz cream before blowing it out, you're sealing everything down nice and tight. So then your frizz is going to be significantly less. And if you blow it out properly, you'll also need way less heat from your flat iron. In my opinion, I think flat iron damage is more prevalent than a blowout damage, because blowout is not quite as much concentrated heat. So if you want to have really smooth, beautiful hair, it's not really about the product. It's 100% about the blowout. You have to learn how to blow out your hair.
I agree. There's one part in there I actually disagree with a little bit. We'll talk about it in a second. But I agree 100%. But I think it goes two ways. One, we need to understand why you want to air dry your hair. Is it just because of time? Like, I just don't want to spend the time drying it. In that case, then yeah, I mean, that's perfectly understandable. We just have to recognize that the results are going to vary, right? And you're 100% correct, or I agree with you, I should say, Gabi, in that you're not, as much as we would love to, like, okay, as stylists, I know that a lot of people, I think that, well, we just want, we want to sell products, or we want to do this, or we want to do that. So we're going to tell you to blow dry your hair because it's the only way that it's going to work. And it's simply not true. I would love to be able to tell a client, hey, look, just let your hair air dry. We're going to do this, let it air dry. And it's going to be phenomenal. You're going to love it. And in very rare cases, that can be true. But 99% of the time, as much as we would love to say that, it's just not how it works, unfortunately. It just, it is what it is, right? So if you're comfortable with the idea that it's just not going to yield you the same frizz control as if you were to actually style it, like Gabi said, then that's fine, but just understand that, right? Now, if you're wanting to not allow your hair air dry because heat damage potential, which is another thing. There was a study that I read a while back. Actually, I did a video, I threw this in there, that they're actually saying that studies have shown that air drying has actually caused more damage. And part of it is just due to the fact that your hair is at its most fragile state when it's wet. And I think a lot of the period of time that it takes and everything that happens and all the manipulation can actually damage it more than dry. You have to go read the overall study, but it shocked me as even an option, right? I was like, oh, that's really interesting to think of it that way. But also on all this, you mentioned, Gabi, that flat ironing is harder on your hair than brown brush styling or blow drying, which I agree with. However, I think there's a caveat to that. And that is I have seen actually worse damage in the salon from people misusing a round brush than even flat ironing. And that's a very specific situation, but it's something that I see a lot of people do where, they will hold that round brush like this. They drop their shoulder or their elbow because this is more comfortable than holding the blow dryer up here, right? So they do this, or they just do this. And if they're doing that, they're pointing the air directly at the hair. And this being so concentrated, especially if you're using a modifier on the end of your round brush or on the end of your blow dryer, like you should be, this is so concentrated. It is so damaging because how hot dryers get nowadays, that if you don't control that airflow and point it down the hair cuticle, that specific instance, I actually see more breakage than I see with flat irons. It's a very specific instance. It's the only place I disagree with you on, and I just had to bring that up because we don't disagree on anything, and that was half the point of the video. So
I could see that too, because your hair is fragile when it's wet, and when you're blowing it out, it's wet. Whereas when you're straightening it, it's dry, so it's stronger. Right?
Exactly.
So yeah, I could very well be wrong there.
You probably are. We got a question. Gabi says, Gabi, what's your favorite blow dry brush?
Oh, KB, do you watch my channel? Because I am a lover of the blow dry brush. I cannot live without it. I never, ever, ever, ever round brush my hair, ever. Like, I always use a blowout brush. It is a saving grace for my hair type. It makes my hair look incredible. The one that I'm really, really loving right now is the Babyliss Pro. It's super good quality. It's nice and hot, but not too hot. It's a little bit pricier because it's more of like a hairdresser brand. There's a Tymo blowout brush that's very, very affordable, and it actually works incredibly well. It's probably a third of the cost of the Babyliss one. The only thing with the Tymo one is that because it's a lower quality hair tool, after about a year of consistent use, it starts getting very hot. Like, and you'll notice it right away. And then you'll kind of have to ditch it and get a new one. So that one has like a shelf life of like a year if you're using it regularly like I do. So sometimes it's better to invest in the higher end ones. There's another one that's really good that you can get at Sephora, and it's blow dry bar. It's a really bright color. Yeah. That one's nice too. I've also tried the Shark Flex Pro. Shark Flex is kind of like the Dyson in that you get lots of different attachments, which is great if you're into that kind of thing. The only thing with the Shark one is that once you screw it into its base, because there's several different attachments, there's a tiny section between the brush and the base that's a little bit open, and it snags the hair. So it keeps like snagging the hair and pulling it out. So that one's my least favorite of the ones that I've tried. But all the other ones, Amika also has an amazing one, and that also sells at Sephora. So that's a long answer to a short question.
So Katie, we also have, like, I did a video a while back where we tested a bunch of the most popular ones and kind of just like showed you the differences between them. I'll make sure that we link that in the description, as well as which the ones the drop brushes that you just mentioned, Gabi. We'll link some connection to those too, so you guys can find those. But I agree with you definitely, specifically on the Shark. And it's funny that you say that, because I'm actually in the process, and actually I would love to hear all your feedback on this. So I'm in the process of formulating the creation of a brush, our own brush actually, that won't be under my name. It'll actually be in a different company, but that's beside the point. But we're trying to figure out the best kind of brush to create, really kind of fill a market. And we're kind of talking to a very specific audience. But one of the things that we've been going back and forth on, or that we've heard so much, and it's been such a frustration for us in the salon, is like a lot of round brushes, for instance, have that little separation between the handle and the actual brush. And it's just that little bit of like crease, but that grabs hair. And I know if you've been in the salon, you used a round brush, it's like it grabs the hair and it like pulls it out, and it drives you absolutely insane. Yeah. And I noticed that about that Shark as well. It does the same thing. Like there's something to be said for just one unit. There's so many little things actually that go into a brush that I'm learning that will grab your hair, and you would never think of that, like grab hair. And if you can eliminate all that, it makes them so much better, you know?
It's crazy how much of a difference having a great brush makes. Even I'm so excited for your brush to come out, because it's going to be, like we know when you're in a salon and you're doing hair for 8 to 10 hours every day for like 15 years, those things make a big difference. Like something snagging, like that's a small thing that really is super annoying. So it's just going to be, I just can't wait to see what you come up with.
I'm really excited for it. I'd love to hear, like, if you've got any comments about it, or anybody, like if you got something you want to say about it, please throw it in the comments or send us an email, any ideas. But I've been doing a lot of research looking into like trying to figure it out, down to the point where like I'm trying to contact like dermatologists and like trichologists to really figure out like some very specific things about them, to like really like, or even like people like just based on the name of the doctors that deal with like arthritis and stuff like that, to understand just ergonomics of grip better. Like you think there's not much to change about a brush, but if you really dive in and you look at it from like a overwhelming perspective of making brush, one specifically for a specific person, but also like one that kind of addresses all the issues that people don't think about when they think about brushes. Like, I think it's more than that. So yeah, that's the side point. Tova, thank you so much. We just got a super sticker from Tova. That was so sweet. Thank you very much. It was really kind of you. She also says, thank you so much, everyone, for all your tips and time and love of hair. Do this again. We'll do it again. I mean, right?
You're the sweetest. Right? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that was awesome. Really, really thank you. That is very, very kind. Okay. Barb says, is your theory the same for air drying curly wavy hair? Is diffusing it more effective than air drying? I always seem to get more frizz with diffusing, even on low heat, than air drying. Can I take this first? Do you mind?
You go for it.
1,000% if you're drying curly hair. Again, I don't talk a lot about curly hair, but this is something that is like, I've did one video about this actually. From the point that your hair is wet to the point that your hair is dry, you're doing one of two things when it comes to curly hair. And I'd love to hear if you agree with this, Gabi. My idea is that you're either adding frizz or you're managing frizz. So yes, you're adding curl, you're doing all that, you're getting the shape. but you're either doing one of those two things, meaning that every action that you take is either encouraging or minimizing the amount of frizz you're getting. And to me, the misconception is that there's an in-between, that this particular thing is not encouraging or discouraging frizz at all. And to me, you're always landing on one of those two things. So if you think about it, from the point of the wet to the point that it's dry, your main goal is to get the curl pattern you want, get the volume you want, while also minimizing frizz every step of the way. Because if you do not do that, you will be inherently encouraging frizz, scrunching your hair. Can it get, while you're drying it, right? Can it get more curl in certain areas? Absolutely. But now you are also manipulating your hair, and any sort of manipulation is going to inherently enhance some amount of frizz. Maybe not a dramatic amount in some cases, and maybe in other cases, absolutely a dramatic amount, but it's not minimizing the frizz. So it therefore is also encouraging on some level. And that goes with everything. To me, I always say all you're doing when you're drying your hair versus air drying it is you're minimizing the amount of time that you have to get that frizz. So you're just kind of controlling that, and you're allowing yourself to get more curl out of it. The perfect way to get the perfect curl, and we used to do this at the salon, but you just never have time for it. Did you have those roller balls at your salon that dry? Like they look like the halo thing? Okay. We would take people, and I'd get all their hair, cut it, put all the product in it, scrunch it up, get it into the shape that you wanted, shove them on one of those, let it just roll around and just add heat with no air, and just let it dry, and then scrunch it up and break up the product, and you get this beautiful curl because there's no manipulation to it whatsoever, but it would take like an hour. It was obnoxious, depending on the curl pattern or the amount of density. So that's my take. I feel like you're going to have a separate take on it, though.
This one, I totally disagree.
Okay.
Stop.
All right. Let's do it. Let's get into it.
You know this? We used to do that before.
Yeah. It's sad that I know that, but go on.
Okay, so this is why I disagree. So I have curly hair, that's fine. That's
unfair. It's super unfair that you have curly hair. So now everybody's going to believe you instead of me anyway. Okay, go on.
It's only one type of hair though, because it's like a very specific type of hair, because it's fine. So if I scrunch and let it air dry, I look like a drowned rat. I have no definition. It's like so deflated, and the curls are like, they're not like, woo, they're just like sad and like noodly. So I have perfected this method of getting amazing curls in my hair. And I wish I showed it to you guys more often. I hardly ever wear my hair curly just because it's a lot of work, to be honest. But this is how I like to do it. For one, you need to start with your hair extremely wet. It can't even be remotely dry at all. It needs to be like wet, wet, wet. And you need to apply really good curl product. And then you need to scrunch it all and make sure you get this like squishy sound while you're scrunching, like right? And then once you've gotten to that stage, and I've done a few demos on my channel, maybe I can put that in the description box of this video as well for you guys. Definitely. Because I actually brush my hair all in this one very specific way with like volume at the top so that I don't have a part line that kind of flattens it. And then there's this amazing thing called hover diffusing. So hover diffusing is exactly what Justin did in the salon with his hovery blow dryer, but you can do it with your diffuser. So you can grab your hair and you can either flip it or just like leave it like this, and you can put it on max heat, max speed, and you hover around your hair until you get it about maybe 60% dry. So you've already minimized the heat or minimized the frizz significantly. And then the problem is say you take your curls, you put them in your diffuser and you go like this, you have more moisture here, less moisture here. So you end up drying out your tips. So your roots look heavy, but your tips look dry and frizzy. So after you've hover diffused, you want to just stick the prongs in the root and lift up. And you lift and hold without pumping, because pumping pushes frizz out. So lift and hold, lift and hold, lift and hold. So do only your roots until they're 95% dry. Then move into your mid shafts, lift and hold, right, with the end sticking out. Dry that. And then at the very end for like, I don't know, a minute, you can go and carefully dry the ends. And then it will all be equally dry, but without those crispy ends and the flat root. Okay. That's how I do it.
I love that explanation. You know that you just said the same thing that I said. You just added a little bit more to the roots and everything. No. I mean, like what you said as far as like how to create more volume in the mid shaft and the roots. Absolutely, 1,000% agree with, and that's completely what I recommend. Definitely, like, can you link those in the description below? Because people, I'm sure, would love to see that process. It's the exact same thing as using the hover ball. You're just actually encouraging more volume at the roots afterward, but it's a much better approach than the hover ball for most people at home, because you're not going to have a hover ball. What we would do is get them about 90% dry and then do exactly what you're doing. We just have them tilt to the side a little bit and then just get it up at the roots or whatever the same way. But 1,000%. I was expecting more of a disagreement is what I'm getting at. I was expecting more of you're an idiot, and I didn't get that. So now I'm a little bit let down.
Another trick with curly hair too is you want to scrunch out the crunch. So after you have to put your crunchy products in, or you're not going to have control over the frizz. But then once your hair is 100% dry, grab your hands and break up the crunch. And then you'll get that soft, beautiful curl pattern without it looking like a wet dog. You know, I think I see that a lot in curly haired people. Like they use a lot of product and their hair looks beautiful and defined, but it looks almost like wet. So scrunch out the crunch at the end, and you can even put some oil in, you know, whichever one you like the most. Olaplex has a nice oil. And then after you scrunch out the crunch, you can scrunch in the oil. And that's really, really nice for curls too.
1,000%. And let me piggyback on that. One thing you want to make sure is that your hair needs to be totally dry. And a lot of times what people will do, I find, is they'll actually take the blow dryer, do what you're talking about, right? And then they put the blow dryer down, they wait for a couple seconds, their hair feels dry because it's warm. And then they'll realize that you got to let it cool down. Cool it down and then feel it. Now, does it still feel dry? Because especially if you're getting large ringlets and you've got a lot of product in it, you could find that in the inside, like the outside feels dry and warm, but the inside of that section is still pretty damp. So kind of squeeze through one and just make sure that it's dry, because you definitely want to do what you just said, but you don't want to start that when there's any bit of dampness to it, or it could go the opposite direction. But breaking it up, using enough, I think you're spot on. Using enough product is like, to me, a good curly hair product is one that when you dry it originally, it will look crunchy and wet. And that's kind of how I determined that I've got enough product and enough equal distribution. But then when you do get it totally dry and you break it up, it breaks up soft. And if you get it broken up, you cannot scrunch it soft. It's just wet, still wet looking, even though it's dry. Then to me, it's like, okay, that's not that you used too much product probably. It's likely just the wrong product. And we need to look at a different product that does break up soft like that, because they are definitely out there.
Yeah, Kimber Dawn just said, break the cast. That's exactly it. You got to break the cast. That's the perfect way to explain it.
I could not have given a better analogy. That's fantastic. I know we have a couple more questions, so let's hop into those real quick and just see where we're at. And then Teresa says, long hair isn't always, so this is kind of a hot take. Long hair isn't always the most youthful. Unhealthy long hair ages you. Short hair isn't necessarily a requirement as we age. So this is 2 hot takes. Do you want to do this first, or do you want me to do this? I mean, I already get just blasted on my channel about this topic, so I'm ready to hit it head on, but you tell me if you want to go first or I want me.
Okay, I'll go quick. So this is the thing with really long hair. So as we age, our features, they drop, right? Natural, we lose volume in our faces and our features fall a little bit. Everything falls down. And so what can happen with a really long hairstyle is that it brings the eye line down. And so when it brings the eye line down, it shows all of the down things in the face. So when you bring volume, you lift the face. I'm a makeup artist, so I see like highlight and contour techniques. I see everything as like a highlight and contour technique, and you can highlight and contour with hair, just like you can highlight and contour with your powder products or foundation products or cream contour products, all of that. And so sometimes I think when people say like long hair isn't youthful, it's oftentimes because it's cutting away where the lines are so long that you don't have lift. And without lift, you're getting this like long draggy effect. I disagree very much with this, and I talk about this a lot on my channel. I think you can be a mature woman, and if you have beautiful hair that isn't thinning, that is still full, you take good care of it, and it's healthy, as long as you get it cut and layered in a really beautiful, movementy, full way, I think it can be incredibly beautiful and sophisticated and sexy. So the short hair isn't necessarily a requirement as we age. I agree. I don't think that everyone who's older needs to have short hair by any means at all. I think it's dependent a lot on what happens with your hair as you age. Because sometimes as we age, our hair gets fine or thinner, and then the shortness will make it look denser, which will then make it look more youthful. So again, it's dependent on all of those factors.
I agree with you 1,000%. I know, like, okay, so if you've been watching my channel much at all, then you've likely, I'm sure, seen a handful of videos where I talk about this. And again, maybe I don't always do the best job of kind of explaining the viewpoint. I try to get the point across, but we need to look at it two different ways. First of all, long hair isn't always the most youthful, but also long hair is not terrible. And there's no reason, there's no specific age. And I'll take this to my grave. I will die on this hill, regardless of what anybody thinks watching any of my videos. But I've also said multiple times, whatever you feel good in is what you need to do. It doesn't matter. There's no age specific length. However, there are two kind of factors I would think we want to take in mind. Most people, as we age, we're also looking at things like, I'm not going to say, yes, we say younger in YouTube land because we have to say stupid words to get people to actually pay attention. And it really is lame. I would love to say, in a perfect world, I love to say, most of us are searching to find the most youthful feel and just life in general, right? We're here because we're like, we get to a certain age. I'm, coming up on 50 and I'm like, yeah, I'll be 50 and I'll be a dope 50, but I also want to feel good and I want to feel, and, I want to live life like I'm not like as I'm trying to be 20, but I want to feel energetic and vivacious and like vibrant, like I'm younger or like I'm, in my 20s or whatever, or most youthful I can for whatever age I am. It's irrelevant. And I think many times in those scenarios, we all want to feel more like lifted and, kind of counteract the things that age comes with. And as we age, like you mentioned, like things start to drop. So long hair becomes more, the longer it is, the only detriment that you need to think about is that it becomes much more dictating in how we go about adding shape to create more of the accentuate more things about your face shape to give you that feel. As it gets longer, it becomes harder to do that, right? And that's not an opinion. That's just the way hair looks. If you've got hair, let's say down to your waist, and you want to layer it, for the layers to balance and make sense with that length, they've got to be really long.
Yes.
And for them to be that long, even though they're shorter than the length, they don't have the ability at that length to get volume because they're still quite heavy. So that's where it gets to. It isn't a personal dig on people to say, look, layering is going to be more flattering or whatever, or certain lengths are more flattering. It's just the way hair works. Certain lengths just flat out give the ability to layer things in a way or create shape in a way that they have the ability to be more flattering. It just is what it is, right? But I think the idea of short hair at some length, I think that's insane. But I will say this, it goes again to what you're saying. There are certain hair textures that as we get them to be, as they get longer, they do tend to you start to see all of the if there's any issues with them, like they're too thin or whatever or anything, then they're going to show up more as they get longer.
Yeah.
Both from a texture damage perspective, but also as a textural thickness perspective, because you also have to think that hair that's longer has been there longer. That means it's had more time. And if you're not taking good care of it, then it's got more time to get more damage. So you're going to see more wear and tear mid-shaft to the ends down. So all of those factors play into it. And I think all of this is to say, wear the hair you want that you feel good in. That's the number one. And I think you'll agree with that 1,000%. 100%. I don't give a damn if it's all one length, huge, and it doesn't accentuate anything. Cool. If you love it, do that.
Yes.
If on the other hand, you're also saying, I want this, but I also want to do as much as I can to accentuate X, Y, and Z about my face or about my hair texture, make it look thinner, denser, whatever, then you have to understand that, okay, well, this length is going to dictate that a little bit. And there are certain things that we have to do with hair, i.e. layers or whatever, to create those illusions for you. Nothing wrong with it. It's just part of that process. No right or wrong. You just need to know one way or the other. I feel like I've talked about that a couple of times. Maybe do I feel, does it seem like I'm a little bit heated? I don't mean to seem heated about that. Does it seem to come off like that? Because I'm really not.
You're very passionate about this topic.
I'm passionate about that topic because I sincerely like stand behind it, and I want my channel to be known for that. But I also feel like, you know, I make so many topics on that, I make so many videos on that, and I'm a guy, right? So like nobody wants to listen to the man tell them about their hair. But like at the same time, like I'm, you know, you try to come from like a space of like honesty, but also like, you know, I'm not trying to be rude about it, but also this is part of, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Real quickly, what's up, Linda? So Linda is my wife and I refer to Linda. Thank you so much. We refer to her as our East Coast mama. She's probably the longest member of this community, I think, of anybody almost, and amazing, and lives on the East Coast. And someday we are going to go find her, and we are going to have dinner with her because she's Italian and she makes amazing Italian food, I'm sure, because I feel like every Italian comes from an Italian family and they're just like amazing at making Italian food. So we're going to go bug her one of these days, Linda, just so you know. And she says, how long before I create the brush? We're working on that right now. We've got a company that reached out a while back that wanted to do this. And I believe that they've made brushes for a bunch of massive companies. So they have more than the experience and the ability to do it. We just need to dial in like all of the specifics on it to make sure that we get everything right. So I don't want to give a specific date, but I'm working. We're putting some specific, like some very hard effort into making sure that this happens sooner than later. And then, yeah, if you're looking for it, I'll let everybody know about it. It won't be the Justin Hickox brush. It'll be under like a different name, business purposes for the future. But that's what we're going to do. I'm really excited about that. Actually, I never thought I'd make a brush. I'm like, don't they just seem like, yeah, how can you fix a brush? Like there's so many great brushes, like whatever. There's so many things to change once you get into it. It's surprising.
It's going to be so amazing. I can't wait. I can't wait.
I'm excited too. Okay. So do we have any other questions or any other things? Let's see. Christine says, is there a specific way to cut thin hair and have some layering on the top to keep it from not going flat? I can't find anyone who can cut my hair without making it thinner and flatter. 1000%. Well, I shouldn't have said that. Gabi, do you think there is?
You go first. Wait, one thing I want to say to you guys right before we answer this, and it really like triggered me in the last question. This is the thing with hair, okay? You will know if your style is good for you if you feel like you can wear less makeup. I always find when my style is wrong, like when my color is off or my cut isn't working, I feel like I need more makeup. I'm like, oh, it's like something's out of balance. Something's out of balance. When you get that haircut and that color that is so perfect for you, you feel so much more beautiful without any makeup on. So always keep that in mind. Like what style makes me feel my best? Barefaced. And that's the style you should wear.
Yeah, that's a great gauge. And we all should be working, all of us, myself included, should be working on feeling great regardless of what the heck we look like. We need to work on that first. And then everything else is a bonus. But like, I know we all need to work on that. But what are your thoughts on this?
Okay, you go first on this one.
Okay. So 1,000,000%. Yes. There is absolutely a way. I've got so many videos where I actually go through that specific process. A lot of people, the misconception to me here is that you cannot layer thin hair without it looking thinner. So let's imagine that you have a bob shape. Okay. It's just one length to here, all one length. The minute you add any layers to the top for any reason whatsoever, the bottom, yes, it will feel a little bit thinner. The question isn't, will it feel thinner? The question is, does it feel too thin? And what happens is in hair school, most people are taught a very specific layering technique that if you don't know how to kind of not do that, you will make the bottom look really thin and it'll overlayer it and it'll make it feel like it's even thick hair can make it look thin. Mm-hmm. But once you learn another technique, you realize that stuff actually doesn't need to be layered down there. You can layer the top and still get quite a bit of movement and shape and not get too many layers. And the way you do that, you can actually at home check this to see. You can take a section from your recession line right here to your occipital bone back here. So you just the top part of your hair, right? So you go around like this, you pull that up and you pin it out of the way, and then you comb all of this hair down flat, and you take a look at that. Now, if that hair down there looks too thin for you, you're like, it still looks too thin. Then what you do is you look at where does it start getting thin? Let's say that your hair is this long. It looks too thin right about in here, but here it looks pretty thick. if you take, or it looks thick enough, if you take that length to here, this top hair that's actually up here, that can be layered. That's not going to make this look any thinner because it's already out of the equation. What happens is when you pull this up and you layer that stuff, that can lay down and actually end up being shorter layers that balance and give it some movement. And this hair underneath is still all one length. So you're not actually thinning that anymore with layers. If you don't do that and you actually do it the way a lot of people are taught, where you pull this out and layer that like this, cut it straight up and down, that's what's going to layer all this. So if this stuff from that recession down here is all one length and it feels thick enough to you, yes, you can layer the top and it won't feel any thinner than it already does because you've eliminated that from the thing first. So how do you find a stylist that can do that? Because maybe a lot of stylists don't know this. And what do you tell them? I would literally go in and I would pull my hair up in a ponytail like that. And I would say, hey, look, I want to add layers to the top. My concern is that anytime I get any of this stuff down here layered, it always feels a little too thin to me. Is there a way that we can layer just the top and not layer this stuff down here? And will that work? And if they say no, there's absolutely no way to do it. To me, I say run, because they don't know how to do it. But I promise you there's a way to do it. I do it. I've done it for 30 years on almost probably 95% of my clients on some level. And it absolutely can be done and it absolutely works. If they say yes, and here are the pros and cons to that, then you're probably most likely you're in a good position. But that'd be my take. Sorry, that was a very long answer. What's your take?
That's a great tip. That's an awesome suggestion. Yeah, the only thing that I can add to that is that oftentimes people have much better density, even with extremely thin and fine hair. The density here is much stronger than the density here. And the reason is because our hairline ends here above our ear, but our hairline ends here below our neck, right? Like on our neck at the back. So one other little trick is if you want to get volume, you likely want to get volume in the crown, which is like here, because that's what's going to give you that lift. You don't necessarily need a ton of volume like right in this area. So something else that you could ask your stylist is it possible for me to layer the back so that I have lots of lift and movement in my crown, but then keep the front stronger, the front line stronger? And there's a very easy way to do that. It's just by over directing that. As a stylist, you over direct the hair from the front to the back. So you're pulling and you're keeping more length, but when it falls, it all falls evenly. And then if you want to create a little bit more balance with that, when you have that density at the front strong, which is what makes it look thick, you can then add some very soft face framing so that it's not like long and then short, you know what I mean? Like a party in the back and just boring at the front.
Okay,
so you can do a curtain fringe, a full fringe, you can have soft face framing. But when I had very, very fine hair clients, I would always kind of take the back and the front as like separate entities. And I would sculpt the front so I could slide cut very gently so they'd have movement here. But then I could do a lot more in the back. And then they get the best of both worlds. They get a strong baseline without holes, right? And they still get the lift from the layers.
You're spot on, I think the overwhelming point with this is a lot of that information is like stylist based, right? It's kind of technical, like the approach to how we actually layer things. And so if you're at home and you're trying to figure out, well, how do I get this to actually happen for me? The key to what we're both saying, because Gabi, you're 100% correct. And yeah, I mean, like you can look at it. I love that analogy too, is because you can look at it and see there's just more follicles in this big section back in the nape and this side section in the front. But also most people are predetermined genetically not to lose hair in the nape of their head. For the most part, like female or male pattern baldness, where they will around the hairline. So as we age, even that gets more dramatic. But the overwhelming thing is when you go to the stylist, you're pulling that up and you're just basically explaining to them their concern, which is you feel like when this stuff gets overly layered, it's too thin. And the way they approach it specifically, whether they use a technique like what you're talking, an overreaction, Gabi, or a technique like I'm talking about, we're still using a little bit of that, but maybe it's just score layering or whatever. That's irrelevant. The question you're really trying to get through to them is the response you're looking for is, do they understand that that's a possibility, that there are multiple techniques to create this look or not? And if they don't, then it's a scenario of maybe this isn't a good fit, which is also why I say always try to find a stylist, like go through a consultation first, sit down, have a conversation with them, and actually talk to them about what you want to do with your hair before you actually have the appointment, so that if you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel awkward getting up and walking out. You're going to book your appointment later anyway. And many times that's free to do. And, it's a little more time out of your hand. But if you've got thin, fine hair, a very specific, like hyper technical situation, you don't kind of have the luxury not to do that, unfortunately. You kind of need to like make sure that you're on the right page with the stylist, or you screw it up one time and it's gonna take forever for that hair to grow back and get thick again, or you're bringing that substantially shorter to where it is thick to cut those layers off so that you can get it to look good again.
Yeah. Another tip that I have for you guys, 'cause I know it's so hard. Like when we talk about it as stylists, it's like, it's so easy. You just, and it's like, what, but how do I explain that? When you're looking for your hair inspiration photos, stylists are very visual people. We're very visual people. We're artists. So we need visual references to understand what you're saying. Because sometimes people will say to me, like, I just want an inch off. And I'm like, and I'll say to them, an inch as in an inch, or an inch as in an inch. Yeah. Like, what is an inch to you? Yeah. And so when you're looking for your hair inspiration photo, which I always recommend doing, look for people who have your type of hair. There's so many times when I had a client come in with baby fine hair and they're showing me pictures of Kim Kardashian, who has like 16 packs of hair extensions in. And I'm like, girlfriend, your hair will never look like that. You need to find celebrities that are I said this in a video, actually, you need to find your celebrity twin. So look for that person that looks like you, that has your texture, your curl pattern. And then you'll know, okay, it's achievable for me because they can do it. And then you can show your stylist and they can cut it in that way. Just don't try to get inspired by people who don't have your hair type, because you will 100% be disappointed.
1,000%. Or, I mean, so are you saying don't bring photos of people that don't have your hair type?
I don't even think you should look at them, because you're not going to be able to achieve it unless you use extensions.
Okay, so this will be the last one, but I do disagree with you on that one. And I'll explain why. Yeah. I think, and I always tell people, bring in photos of what you like and what you don't like. Bring them both in. And here's the thing, though. The key is to not bring in a photo with the expectation that you're going to end up with, for instance, and I have literally had this, where somebody, a Caucasian female, brought in a photo of Oprah Winfrey and wanted her hair. And I'm like, that's a very different hair texture. You have to understand that what you're wanting from this, what you're seeing in it. But the key is not to say, I want my hair to look like her. I want her hair. The key is to understand, this is what I like about this style. This is the inspiration I'm taking from it. Now, can we adapt that to my specific hair texture and my, my styling requirements, techniques, right? My hair texture and my day-to-day, life. Like, is this even something feasible? But the reason I say actually bring those in is because it gives, the more photos you bring me, the more insight I have. And as long as you're open to me explaining to you, look, this is a very different hair texture. So here's what you like about it. And with that said, here are the pros and cons to us trying to move in that direction. Here, if we were to do this, this is what could happen. If we were to do this, this is what could happen. Mm-hmm. And being open to that dialogue, that's one thing. If you, like Gabby said, are just finding a photo of, Kim Kardashian and you've got 4 hairs on your head and you're like, I want my hair to look like this, right? And then you're just locked into like, I want this. And you're not willing to understand that it might not work that way. Then start looking, you've got to start finding things that are for you. But I think as a whole, the more the merrier, bring them all in, but just be open to understanding that there's going to be a dialogue involved in here, right? Like, this is not going to be I want this hair. Okay. And sorry to speak to that again. If you take a photo into a salon and you say, I want this one photo, I want this. And all the stylist says is, okay. And they start to get you shampooed or they start to cut, also run away, because there needs to be more, in my opinion, there needs to be far more questions. I need to know what you like about it, what you don't like about it, why you like it, what do you think about the length, how are you styling your hair, all these questions to really get if that's even feasible for you. And if you understand whether or not it's feasible for you.
Yeah, such a good point. I also think I really like your point also about bringing photos in that you don't like. I do this with my stylist all the time. I absolutely love my hairstylist. And I'll say, like, Charisse, I love these, but I really don't like this. Like, so don't cut it like this. And she's like, oh, sometimes it's almost more telling what you don't like than what you do like.
Yeah.
For a stylist.
I learned so much more from the don't likes than the do likes. I would much rather you tell me what you don't like. What show me, because that shows me, right? It's like the famous question, like, do anything. I don't care what you do, really. So if I shave your head, you're cool with it? Well, no. You said do anything. I mean, like there's clearly stuff that you don't like. You just need to make me aware of it so that we know that we don't cross that line. And that's why I was like, well, I want an inch off. Okay, well, what's an inch? Well, just like bring it up like here a little bit. Okay, to here, like show me, because we need to know where are your boundaries. What's too short? Like at what point are you not going to feel comfortable anymore? It's right here. Okay, then we're going to leave it longer than that. But I would rather know what your limit is to know what I can work within. And I know that if I stay away from that, then you're still going to be happy. And then I just need to dial that in a little bit. But all day long, take photos of stuff you don't like. If you can't find a style that you do like, just take photos of stuff you don't like. That speaks volumes. I love that, Gabi, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay. Looks like we've got one more comment. If I can find it here. Sorry. My little computer's acting crazy. And it said, could you speak on proper nutrition that helps overall hair health and hair? Also proper exercise, even if all one can do is walking. So many things. First, well, do you want to talk to this first, or do you want me to talk to it?
You go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I love the fact that you recognize that nutrition plays such a massive role in not just health, but also in hair. And I think a lot of people think, well, our hair grows right from the outside, when in reality, your hair doesn't grow from the ends. Like we all know, our hair grows from the scalp. So what you do, or what your internal, like what's going on internally, is directly representing itself externally through your hair. To break that in even a little bit more, there are tests that can be done with hair that show drugs. Like, so you can do drug testing on hair. That's how dramatic it is to explain like what's going on internally and what you've taken in. They can pull your hair to find that. So with that said, whole nutrition, like I'm not saying like the whole 30 or like any specific nutrition plan. I'm saying like eating one ingredient foods are always going to be good. Making sure that you get enough of the, the vital nutrients and minerals. Protein is good, right? Like all of the things that I think if you think of just eating healthy or as healthy as you can, less processed and, healthy fats, healthy proteins, healthy carbs, all of that stuff, I think you're going to be like in good shape. Moving your body, so I'm not a trainer, right? I exercise. I try to exercise at least 5 days a week, or more. And I think just moving your body, getting your blood circulating, walking, as we age, walking 10,000 steps a day is huge. All the things, I think the focus is try to eat healthy as often as you can, and recognize that you're not going to always eat healthy. And you're going to I eat like trash often. Every Sunday night we have pizza night, but the rest of the time I try to keep it clean. Right. And try to eat as healthy as I can because I want to feel good. Right. And I want to look good for myself. Like the way I think I look good, I want to look good. But then moving your body 30 minutes a day, just even if it's just whatever you can do for, 15 to 30 minutes a day, just to be active. All of those things are going to help. And then the more you get used to that, the more you just increase that a little bit to kind of keep it a little bit more. So you're always pushing that limit a tiny bit so that you don't just get complacent, right? But I think anything you're doing, if you're worried about that, is better than nothing. There's like a list of vitamins that are actually like specific to hair health, right? I don't have it off the top of my head. You can Google that and it'll show you like these, specific vitamins that help. I did a video on it a long time, but if you think I didn't read that off of a card because I can't remember it all. It's like absolutely, I'm not that smart. Yes, I can't say one other thing. My wife, Deanna, I'll link in the description below. My wife actually has a Muscle Through Menopause, a whole pamphlet that she just created all about moving your body, like different exercise, different nutrition. She's got like a bunch of information. I didn't even think about this. I could just link that below. That'll give you a lot of insight. And she very much comes from a place of like, not a health expert and like workout fitness expert. It's the stuff that she's learned over like deep research into this over the past 12 years, just that she's doing currently that's working really well for her to make sure that she's eating as healthy as she can, moving her body like in a non like super obnoxious, like, muscle and fitness kind of way, right? Like just in like an appropriate way that has been giving her great results. So we'll go ahead and link that in the description too, so you can get more information on that. I feel like I talk so much, Gabi. Please stop me and start talking.
No, I agree. I have nothing to add to that. I think all of that's really good. I think that if you're having issues with your hair, skin, or nails, it's also a nice idea to pop in like a hair, skin, and nail supplement that's specifically made for that. I take one that's like a gummy that I got at Costco. I take 2 a day, and that can really help. Biotin can really help. So, but everything Justin said is right. Your hair is a result of your health, right? And your skin is a result of your health. So if something's going on where you're noticing changes, something inside is unbalanced. And so I would look at even getting a blood test done. I was having some issues with my hair loss postpartum. And I noticed I actually was having a lot of issues with exhaustion too. And I thought it was because I'm a new mom or whatever. I went in to talk to my doctor about it. I'm like, my hair is so brittle and this and that. And I actually had a really pretty bad thyroid condition that I didn't know about. Yep. I think we often, especially as women, we minimize our symptoms because we kind of grin and bear it. It just is what it is I have a new baby, But if you are noticing something is changing, I would definitely go and get some blood work done, because it could be thyroid related. It could be protein. You might be anemic. So you should always seek answers if you feel like something's off.
Yeah, hair thinning, iron levels is like one of the first things I say. Go get your blood test done and see if your iron levels are low. And a lot of times, if iron levels are low, they can just get on iron supplements, and that solves a lot of the problem, right? Like that's specific to hair thinning. But I'll end on one little anecdote or one little quick story too, based on all of this. I actually had a client that came in. He's been coming in for a long time. He's very, very healthy, very, very fit. He owned a restaurant, but he's like hyper specific about eating very healthy, way more on target than I will ever be. He came in, he left, he went to California for about 3 months, came back to me, and his hair is about my length, right? It's quite short. Came back to me and said, I don't know what they did at the last salon, but you got to fix it. They messed it all up. And his hair was, do you remember, Gabi, remember S waves, S curls in hair, like he used to do? Finger waves, right? It was like it literally grew forward this way and then back and then forward, super dramatic. And he's like, I don't know how they did this, right? Like they did this, you need to fix it. And I'm coming and I go, dude, what did you go to California for? Like, what's going on? And he explained he was going there to open up another restaurant, and it was super stressful, right? He's like, yeah, talking about all the stress. I'm like, your hair is not cut like this. Your hair is literally growing out of your scalp like this.
That's crazy.
Never done this before. It just grew down like, kind of like mine, very normal. Never have seen this. A few months later, it was back to normal. But it was physically growing out of his scalp in an entirely different way. And I'm like, there's no possible way. I don't care what I do. I cannot cut this out of your hair. This is growing out of your head this way. Yeah. And it was the most dramatic thing that I've ever seen that really drove the nail in the coffin of the idea that what we have going on internally is outwardly affecting our hair. And so many people, so it's kind of like what you said about biotin. I agree, like supplements, absolutely. But I think we also need to recognize that they need to be supplements. They need not to be the solve-all cure. Like take them in conjunction with other things you're doing that are also healthier, but don't eat like trash, not exercise, not do anything, take terrible care of yourself internally, pop a supplement and just assume that everything's going to be okay. Because unfortunately that would be great, because I would just eat pizza every single day and I would probably just sit around and not do anything, but that's just not true. And we all know that. We just have to accept it, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything's from the inside.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, like, that's, we all know it, right? It's the unsexy thing that nobody wants to think or nobody wants to admit. I would much rather just have pizza and drink have like sugar and pizza and just not think about anything the rest of my life and be happy because it's so good. If you don't like pizza, you can't be my friend. But there's that. Well, hey, I think that we wrapped everything up here. I really, 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 as always, I appreciate you coming on here and hanging out with me. I thought we would disagree on way more. I'm kind of surprised that we agree as much as we do. Maybe it's because we're both stylists and strong. So who knows? What do you think?
I know. That was so much fun. Thank you for asking me. Thank you guys for hanging out with us on your Sunday. I really appreciate it.
Yes, it was always fun and a ton of fun. Thank you guys, everybody, for hanging out. Thank you for contributing to the comments and the questions. Thank you for all the super chats, all that support. We really, really, truly appreciate it. If you, again, for some reason have not seen Gabi, there's a ticker below that was just showing all the places you can find her. Glam Girl Gabi on YouTube. Make sure you go watch your videos, subscribe. I'm not just saying that. You will be happy. Great content. I steal most of my ideas from her anyway. So there's that. And half the videos I have, she's in it on some level anyway. So Linda, thank you so much. We really appreciate you. And
thank you, Linda. Thanks, Denise.
Yes, thank you so much, Denise. Everything you saw will be listed, or everything we talked about will be listed in the comments below, or in the description below. So thank you. And we will see you next time. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Let me see if I can actually end this.